Hi. Welcome back.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do it again.
Okay.
So we're just gonna take that from the top. Hi. Welcome back. We're so happy to have you here for another episode of Not For Anything. I'm Julia.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is today's episode? I don't know.
It sure is.
Let's talk about a few things first of all. I need to, I didn't want to ever have to do a public apology on here. This is not what I was intending to do. And I didn't mean for my actions to hurt anybody, but I do want to address one thing as usual before we start. My hairstyle the last two episodes were just not okay on any level, and I accept that. And I don't know who told me a middle part was okay for my forehead, but it wasn't. And I know it hurt a lot of people. I know it did. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and you're never going to see that from me again. That's all.
If it's any consolation, I think you looked fine, but
Okay,
that's just
well,
me.
I have to make it about me. It's always about me. Now, this week we have a different setup. It's a bit more spookier. Spookier is in English? I don't know
Yeah,
if that's
for
in
spooky season.
It's spooky season.
Happy Halloween, motherfuckers.
But we do have a very special guest this week.
We sure do. Guys, you know him. You love him. He's probably yelled at you, and he's a little gay.
You've guessed it.
Give it up for the one and only
Julian Jacob.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to have you
so
here,
good to
darling.
have
Happy
you
to
here.
be here.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
So cute.
try.
So, should we,
Just when you thought today's episode was going to be fun, it's not. No, of course it's going to be fun. We're always fun.
why are we making it so dark?
I don't know.
Welcome to the
We're
podcast.
going through a thing. But, we brought you here, Julian. I don't think I've ever called you Julian. And
Nope.
That's so weird.
we brought you here, Ju, because we want to talk about a few things. I think each of us have, different experiences in terms of dealing with family and, how we've grown from that. And I think we were reflecting upon it one day of we want to have Julian on, what could we possibly talk about that's not theater or not high school, or you know what I mean, because you're effing illiterate, but what else can we possibly talk about? Yeah. And we always say, the three of us, we always say we rank, and we don't know why we rank, but we're different for some reason for everybody else. People
What
just
does that mean? I feel like people don't know what we mean when we say we rank.
So when we say that we rank, we're basically saying is it just us? Or are we stupid? Or what's the line?
Why does everyone hate us?
Yeah, we never understand what we've done wrong in a situation, and sometimes we can be oh wow, yeah, maybe that came off, however, but most of the time we think we're being pretty decent human beings, so we just say, oh well, it's because we fucking rank, meaning we're stinky, meaning not actually.
We shower, for the record.
But
may
meaning,
not look it today.
I
but
do. I can't. No.
meaning that
I think it we rank just meaning I think we're all very misunderstood in really similar ways. I think there's a lot of common themes within our lives, and we had you on today because you're one of our people. We love you to death. But also, we do have. Why are you laughing? Do you not love me?
No, I
Should
love
I leave? But I think that we all have. Excuse me. We all have our own story. And it's what you said about relating to family and the home, and how that's been interrupted and how it's changed over the years because of certain events that have taken place. So, hi. So yeah, we brought you on here today because we think that a lot of people can relate to feeling like they come from a home where maybe it's just not their safe place, the place where they feel the most included or welcome.
Yeah. I even think using the word home in that sense is not, it's not correct. Not that it's not correct, but I think home obviously has a different meaning for everybody. And I know for the three of us, where we live, I know is not our homes. I know our home is when we're with each other, if I'm just speaking for all of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and that's what I think you're saying is that everybody has a different definition of the term home, and it's not necessarily the place where you live. So I guess maybe we'll start with Julian, and we'll just I hate that I'm saying your name fully. It's really gross.
Yeah. Who are you?
Who are you?
Hey.
It's when you guys call me Julia, I'm I'm just going to yeet out of here.
No, I've done it recently. It's weird.
I know, it's really gross. If you want to just open your deepest, darkest secrets. Like, tell us everything about you tell the viewers everything about you. I just kind of, when was the pivotal moment in your life when you knew that, like, oh, my life isn't the same anymore?
When I was 13, 14, my
We need therapy so bad.
Oh my god, it's not funny.
okay. I've just never so professionally talked
I
about
know.
it. It's so weird.
Well, you're just talking to us.
Fuck.
Just talk to us.
Okay. So as you both know, when I was around 13, 14, my dad passed away. And that was a pretty pivotal point in my life where I was forced to, as we say, buck up and grow up and, move on. But yeah.
So how was that, like, being in your home? Like, how did that shift? Like, because I know you have two older brothers. So were they in the house at the time? Like, were they living with your mom at the time, or was it just you and your mom and your dad at the time?
It was me, my mom, and my dad, and my oldest brother Chris, because he works in the medical field. So he moved back home to help us take care of my dad. But my mom always had to work during the day,
Right.
to pay for everything, all the treatments and everything that was going on. And my brother Chris also worked at the hospital at the time. So it was literally just me and my dad. So usually whenever my dad had appointments, I remember especially during March break and stuff, I would go with him all the time to all his appointments and stuff. So he didn't have to go through chemo and radiation and
I
things
didn't
alone.
know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. How did that, like? It also took us 9 to 10 times to try to, like, do that one take.
So bad.
So
guys.
bad. But so how did that change? Because, like, all of a sudden, like, this person that's been, like, a figure in your life of, like, strength and et cetera, you now, like, see them kind of, like, withering away, and, in a way there's nothing to do about it. So how did that, like, change your perception of maybe, like, death or parents or anything like that?
It was the thing that I still hold so close to me and kind of regret is not being as close to my father as I possibly could during that time, because I think like 13, 14 years old is like such an awkward stage in everybody's life. And you're at the point where, you're going through puberty and things are awkward. So you don't appreciate all the good things you have in life. You're very like self-centric and very, all about yourself. And it was very much like, I feel like past that age that I was at, it's when, you start developing a stronger bond with your parents or one of your parents or whatever. And I feel like I really missed that. So yeah, that was the hardest thing for me, was missing such a pivotal point in like my development or relationship with
It's
my
such
family.
a weird time too, because like you're growing and you don't fully like understand what's going on. So yeah, I can't imagine.
Well, yeah, like you were just turning into, excuse me, but you were just turning into a man, or you were
Man.
about to become,
Man.
you were entering manhood. And so to lose your father just right at that time when like you probably were about to really need him, must have been really hard. I'm wondering because, so my mom's dad also had cancer. Congestive heart failure, cancer. My mom's dad had congestive heart failure, and she told me that when she would come home from school, like home was not a nice place to go home to when you have a sick parent in the house. Like it feels like you just like have to take a deep breath before you walk inside, because it's just like, you know what you're walking into, and it's not a fun environment. So I wonder for you, like, was that kind of the case? Like when he was sick, did you just feel like, I don't want to go home right now?
Yeah.
Like,
The part that was really hard for me to deal with during that time was because I was so young in my age, I wasn't really included in anything. So it was my mother making decisions with my brothers about what was happening, the treatments, like what my dad was feeling, like what the next steps were. And I understand it to a degree because I was 13, 14. What input did I have? I didn't fully understand what was going on, but also I just felt like I didn't really have a family at the time to begin with, because like this terrible thing's happening. And then I felt super alone because not only am I the youngest, I always felt like that because I'm significantly younger than my brothers.
yeah.
And then, I wasn't involved in, the decision making and things like that were happening. So I felt very isolated a lot of the time. So being home all the time sucked.
And once your dad did pass, did you feel like that feeling kind of lingered, where you just felt like You were kind of on your own to grieve. You were kind of on your own to answer your own questions that you might have had. Because I'm sure you must have felt to a certain extent that like you couldn't go to your mom because you didn't want to trigger her and like make her have those conversations if she wasn't ready. And I know you weren't close with your brothers at the time either, so like you couldn't have gone to them. Like I felt like that probably was extended over a period of time, that feeling of loneliness.
Yeah, it was, but it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. My mom was the absolute best during that time. Like this sounds so weird, but like I was scared to sleep alone. Like I didn't want to be alone during that thing. So like my mom was like always there and like, did it all for me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. She comes through for you in like her own ways, right? It's not always about like needing to talk about it. It's about, just those acts of love.
Yeah. So
Do you sometimes feel like in your life now, because I know you mentioned that, you feel like you're not included, that you're not like involved in those decisions you're making because you were so young at the time and there is such a big age gap. Do you feel like sometimes if you're not included in situations with your family now, that can be like a trigger to those feelings?
yeah, absolutely. It's myself and, my family and my brother specifically. Like I was always envious of everyone else growing up around me when I was in elementary school because everyone else was so close in age to their siblings and I was always the weird one. So for the record, my brothers are like 16 years older than I am. I was my brothers like to say accident. I like to say miracle. Anyway. But nonetheless,
That's neither
here nor there. So, it was a good time-ish. But, it was always that awkward thing. And by the time I was old enough to, like, figure out what's going on in life and I was becoming a teenager and all that stuff, they were moved out. They were in relationships. Like, I couldn't relate to them. So it was always hard to have a relationship with them. So it was really, I pretty much felt like an only child growing up my entire life. It was always just me and my mom, really. High school was terrible in the sense that, we were just so distant. I was going through puberty. I was moody. I was, whatever. You remember me in high school? Never.
In high school?
Never.
What do you mean? You were a treat.
Yeah, it was
a delight to be around in high
Everyone's
school.
best friend. No, it was terrible. And so it sucked, but ever since... And I always think my sexuality had something to do with it because I knew...
You're gay?
No.
That was good.
Straight as a board.
Yep. No. So, yeah, I'm pretty gay. So it was just like another thing on top of the many layers of my relationship with my family where I'm like, I'm an outcast. I don't belong. I don't fit in. Like one of those things. But ever since I came out at the beginning of university to them and my family, it was a lot better for all of my relationships with my mom and my two brothers. So,
So what's your idea of home now?
Um,
Or what do you see it being hopefully in the future?
I could say I'm genuinely at the place in my life where my home life has been its best. Like I have a good relationship with my mother. My relationship with my brothers is better. I have a really loving boyfriend and like I have the best friends ever. Not these two, but just kidding. But yeah, so it's come a long way. It's not perfect, but no one's home life was really perfect, but yeah.
Yeah. That was good.
That's so good. I
Yeah.
love you.
I love you.
Love you.
You're so straight. I love you so much.
Cheers.
All right.
Oh, it's my turn.
You guys ready?
You guys ready for
Tedler?
All right, Miss Julia Carano, you're next.
Well, I don't know. Like mine, it's. See, like I should have thought of like the right sentence to say because I don't really know. But like,
Yeah. These are delicate conversations we're having. Like,
well, I feel like mine isn't that really. Mine's for me, like looking back at it now and like, oh my God, I need to buck up because like, so I'm a child of divorce, which like for me, still saying that, I sound like I'm 12. I feel like I'm 12
Yeah.
being like, my parents are divorced and I got like side bangs. You know what I mean? Like I still feel very that when I say that. Some part of it feels like not serious still. But my parents have been divorced for like most of my life. They got divorced when I was like 7. And then both had have partners now, got partners like fairly quickly, and I have a half brother on my dad's side of things, which is separate conversation.
He's a little cute.
Little
cute.
guy. So my brother and I are 12 years apart, and like I have like no relationship with him. That's partially because like he doesn't live in the same city, and like there's a whole other story there. But like, you know, so like I worry about like the relationship that I'm gonna have with him because there isn't really one right now. He like just got a phone, so like I'm able to text.
I was gonna say you guys
Yeah.
talk and
That's like recently, so I've missed out. I haven't seen him in like 2 years, so I've missed out on like quite a bit like of his life, which sucks. But like, you know, it's that thing where it's like, oh, I can only hope for the future. That whatever. But yeah, so like my idea of home was always ambiguous because like I always had 2 houses, I had 2 beds, I had, you know, I remember the day my sister and I were moving out of like our family home, and I was looking at my clothes and I was like, Dee, like what do I know? Like how do I pack? And she goes, I'm doing this pair of pants here, mom's, this pair of pants, dad's, and she was just doing it one by one, and I was like, okay, so like you divide like everything you have. I almost said your assets, like you have assets at 7 years old. You divide everything you have in like 2. And there's like these 2 places that are supposed to be like your home. And until like mid high school, I would say like even grade 12, bit of first year university, I was still doing 1 week with my mom, 1 week with my dad, depending on like convenience of like if we were doing shows or like wherever, because my dad always drove me everywhere. So if we were in tech week, I was like, I'm fucking staying with dad.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So, sorry, stroke. So yeah, like I always was like, I never ever felt at home. I guess like,
Because there was a duality.
yeah, it was never, what's the line? It was never,
Okay, Julia.
yeah, Julia, relax. But yeah, like I never really felt like I was at home. Like when I went to school, I was really, I mean, I really liked going to elementary school until like grade 8 when I was like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like, and then going into high school, I enjoyed going to high school. I just like was stressed about going to high school just because of like, you guys know why we were stressed. Because I was effing illiterate. But
Emotionally abused.
I was socially abused.
It's neither here nor
Isn't
there.
it? But I don't know, like getting out of the house, like I just never felt like, safe or like that I was able to like relax ever because I was always like moving around. Like I was never able to like be like, oh, I'm at home, thank God. Like no, I was always like, there was always a con to it. And sometimes there was pros to it, but there was always usually like oh, I'm here, but you know, I'm at my mom's house. I have to wake up at 5 o'clock for the bus this morning. Whereas like,
You don't feel settled.
yeah, that's it. Thank you. I forgot English. I never felt settled. Even now, I still like kind of don't feel settled because now I'm living mostly with my dad. But like still like the situation there was just like it's not like fun and not that it needs to be fun, but it's just difficult living with my sister.
How else do we say this?
How else do we say this? Diana, you're so hard to live with. I hate you, but I love you at the same time. And my dad, too, is like living with a man. My dad is like, as you've known from these last episodes, he's like a fucking bro and like
Hi,
a man.
Pat.
Hi, Pat. Like a man's man. So like, you know, he like leaves his dishes. It's just like, it's little things like
Yeah.
that where it's like, oh my fucking God. Like I have to go, I have to clean, I gotta make dinner, I gotta do this. I have to, like, I've never ever relaxed.
I slave over a hot stove.
I swear to God. And like, again, the only place I've felt like at home in my life is when I'm with you guys or like with my partner also. And like, I've like recently started calling his place home, even though like, I still don't feel like fully settled and being like, oh, like it's because it's not mine. Like I don't like pay rent or like, you know, contribute to anything there other than like, I'm the housewife of the house and just like make and cook.
Also, who are we kidding? This is our home.
This very basement. But yeah, like for me, home has never been a physical place other than Ireland, which has always been really weird to me because I've had this weird connection with Ireland my whole life, and I have like literally no roots to Ireland. But I have like when I went there, I was like, I am at home. But I have no like family there. I have no nothing. So it's never really been a geographical location other than Ireland for some reason, which I'm like still trying to like figure out. But it's always been with like the people that make me feel like settled, like you said.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you said, everybody's family like life is different. I don't even know if you said that. Like someone said, like, you know, the family life is different. So it's
I think you quoted yourself.
as Julia Carano said, family life is different. And it's really about like the people who are there that make it truly like what it is to be a home.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple questions for you because when we were talking about this topic earlier altogether, you were saying something like, as soon as my parents got divorced, I knew that I knew that I had baggage. Like you were like, I knew that all of a sudden I had trust issues. My idea of love changed. Like,
Oh yeah.
the idea of a happy, but I was wondering, like, because you were so young, do you think that sort of narrative has been like really pushed in the media of like, if you're a child of divorce, then like you have a really skewed version of what love is and stuff? Like, did you feel like that was like sort of washed over you as soon as your parents got divorced, or do you feel like it came organically?
Because I was so young, like it happened as I was like in high school. That's why I felt so angsty all the time in high school, and I was like wore studded bracelets. Like I felt that a lot through the media in high school, but like even when I was in elementary school, I was too embarrassed to like tell anybody that I had a broken family, like divorced parents, because nobody else's parents were divorced, and I didn't want to be like that kid, like, she comes from a broken home. And it wasn't until later when I met people that actually had divorced families that I could say like, oh, hey, what's up? But those ideas of the media, I don't think came to me until I was in high school, but I knew my perception of love was different in like grade 8 when I was 14-ish. Because I was like looking at other relationships, and I knew all like, you know when like your middle school friends are like, oh my god, my boyfriend like broke up with me, and you're like the
That's
therapist.
not real.
Yeah, the therapist of the grade. I was the therapist of the grade, and I was like, hi, I'm single as fuck, a meatball. Like, what do you people? Actually, no, I was anorexic at the time. I was like, what do you people like want from me? And I was giving out all this like relationship advice as if I'd known everything, because I'd seen all those problems. You know, I'd heard my parents fight on the phone when I was 10 years old, and like heard some shit my parents say to each other. You should like never ever hear your parents say to each other. And it's just, I felt like the therapist because I'd already like experienced that before everybody else was like about to experience relationships.
Like when things get nasty and
Yeah.
like it's not the honeymoon phase anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean,
I'm trying
again,
to think if we, sorry.
like again, like I just, you people are my home. Like, it's not a physical location for me. There's no line for it.
Was it okay? So I kind of went through the same thing on my end, just in a different way. But when your parents, and you mentioned this, started dating other people and like your step parents, what was that adjustment like for you?
I don't think it was, at the time, it wasn't hard for me. I think it was harder for my sister because she was older. At the time, I was like, oh, like, this is so fun. Like, when I met my stepmom for the first time, and this is funny because I fucking can't stand her, but, you know, when I met her for the first time, I was, like, so excited, and I was like, oh my god, it was like having, like, an older cousin.
Yeah.
Because she's also younger than my dad. So, it was like having, like, an older cousin. Like, I got to, like, she could buy me clothes and, like, all this stuff, so it was really fun. My stepdad was the same thing. Like, I was very, very cool with him. Julian's in love with my stepdad. My sister, I think, is where, like, I think my sister, like, has a lot of damage from this, too, because she was, like, 12, 13, so I think she was at that really impressionable age. And it wasn't until I was in high school where I was, like, noticing certain things that are fucked up that I'm like, you're not my fucking so-and-so, you know what I mean? But I was always kind of okay with them, and it's, now, like, if I have an issue, it's more, like, a matter of, like, indifference, and I just shut up and, like, walk away because I'm an adult now, and I don't need to, like, have those arguments. I've never really been the one to be confrontational with that too. Like, I always would just like walk away. So the
You're
adjustment.
really confrontational.
Yeah.
Scary.
I cry.
You're
I just
a bully.
Cry.
You're like,
Yeah, I'm a bully. I forgot.
excuse me.
But Jess, I'm a bully. I'm a bully. So
You're a cult leader.
yeah, break. The adjustment never really also had to happen because I was too young to understand it. So I just knew that, like, oh, this is what my life is now.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like, my sister and I talk, like, what if mom and dad, like, got back together? Like, what would happen? Because they went through this weird phase where they started, like, being friends for a second, and I've never known them as friends. So I was like, I wouldn't allow it to happen. Like, all the shit that they caused us, like, psychologically, like, no, that's fucking selfish. You can be alone.
Well, what would you say to, like, people that are listening who are children of divorce? Like, would you say that, like, what's something that you think you should have kept in mind or you keep in mind to this day to kind of not get wrapped up in all the dark stuff?
Yeah, well, I usually give one cliche line per podcast, so I'm going to use mine now. And I'm going to say, like, everything happens for a reason. And as cliche as it is, like, you know, despite it being like really sad at times to see your family break apart and, you know, you have to experience all this shit afterwards of it being like so traumatizing, essentially. Like I have a brother because of it. I'm a different person because of it. I met you people because of it. Like, I don't know where my life would have led me. I could have been still friends with the friend that I had when I was like 7 years old, which like I would be like a girl that just like talks about nails all day. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that person. So it truly, like, although something is completely shitty, everything happens for a reason, and everything has an outcome at the end. Sorry, don't use that. Everything has a different outcome from the beginning at the end. Sorry, don't use that either.
Everything has an outcome at the end.
At the beginning.
Everything happens for a reason. Everything, there's cause and effect to everything. I'm not, okay, we're cutting this
Thanks,
out.
Bill Nye.
It's just, I don't know.
Science rules.
Science rules. Bill.
The wrong way.
But yeah, that's again, like it's not like as devastating. I don't want to even compare it to like losing a parent in that sense, but these is
a disaster.
This whole idea of home was like completely disrupted for me, and it just like was never the same. And it like looking towards my future, I'm like, I just want where there's not screaming all the time.
I know.
Well, I don't know how to jump into this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about your home now.
Sure.
Let's talk about your home now.
Okay.
Like, tell us a little bit about it now and
How you got here?
how you got here. Thank you.
How I got here.
I mean, you don't know, but
Oh
a
my
carriage.
god.
the stork.
Yeah, okay, so for those of you who don't know, I was adopted. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think talking about this is a little bit difficult just on a technical level because I think there's a lot of different aspects to it. It's not like an isolated incident. I think it's sort of one thing that happens, then there's a lot of shrapnel and debris that that kind of erupt out of it. But my home now, I have the like loveliest parents in the world, and I am, yeah, I know you guys love it. It's great.
Soothing.
Not that we don't have our share of problems. Like, trust me, we have our own issues and our own family dynamics that are a little bit difficult to navigate sometimes, but I really do have the best parents in the world, and I'm very grateful for them. I think the thing with adoption, because it's hard to talk about this without talking about that, is that even though I feel very, like, I feel so taken care of, and I've never felt like I've had to really struggle in life. Like, I've always known that my parents have my back no matter what and will always come through for me, and they really, as parents that adopted children, did the most amazing job. Like, they nailed it, you know what I mean? Like, I think they did everything right. But I think what's kind of interesting about that is that
There's an interesting dichotomy there.
but I think what's interesting about that is that parents who adopt can still do everything right, but that doesn't mean that that child is not going to have a lot of questions still, and not have really organic feelings that just come out of, like, if, you know, I was adopted, so I naturally have certain feelings, and I have to, like, one of the, I think, challenges in my life is to, like, not entertain some of the feelings I have and not try to, like, validate them with examples that I can pull from real life. So, for example, like, growing up, kind of the same thing with, like, the divorce thing, where it's like, oh, I'm just going to have relationship issues for the rest of my life because I'm a child of divorce. Like, I felt like everyone was always telling me, like, you're probably going to have abandonment issues because you were adopted. Or when
That's very frank.
or when I started therapy, like, that was something that all my therapists, when I was, like, looking at different ones, they would always, they would always bring it up, like, so you're adopted, and I'm like, I'm not damaged, like, we don't need to talk about the fact that I was adopted, like, I'm fine. But then I did start to diagnose little parts of my life where I was like, oh, that's probably where that comes from. That's probably where that comes from.
I did the same thing going into therapy. Sorry, I'll jump in after. Go.
The therapy.
But I think this is going to be an amazing analogy, and you're both going to roll your eyes. But have you ever seen, I've seen like a post or something where they show a broken dish, and then they say, like, in Japanese culture, this might be totally, like, who knows if it's real, but they fill the cracks with gold and to, like, sort of mend that broken dish. And so you can see, like, where it was cracked, where that, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Where the dish was cracked. Like, it's a permanent memory of, like, this was once broken, but we fixed it with gold.
Okay.
I think that's kind of how I feel in terms of, like, being adopted, and, like, my my start in this world wasn't amazing. Like, we got off to a rocky start, but my parents mended that and did everything right to sort of heal that. And still, though, I can analyze myself and notice that sometimes you're just a little bit damaged, and that's okay. And it's nothing to, you don't have to carry shame about that. But I think it's hard when you're adopted because you're always, and I was really fascinated when you were talking about the feeling of not being included, because I think that's something I'll always be destined to feel. Like, when you know that you weren't welcomed with open arms when you were, like, conceived, like, there was, even if you were a mistake or, you know, you weren't planned, like your parents, it was still something to be excited about. To know that you probably weren't something that gave anyone excitement, it's like, it's hard for the ego to really digest that, because I can look at that and be like, yeah, because they had their own life at the time, and, like, they didn't want that. That's just not what they had in, like, that wasn't their plan. But my ego is just like, but I have to feel wanted. I have to feel like I'm supposed to be here. But the truth is that sometimes I'm just like, I don't know if I was supposed to be here, you know? Sorry if that's dark.
No,
but, like,
no, I know.
I get
We
it.
have these conversations all the time too, where you're like, and like, I could, you always say, like, I could have easily been, like,
I say that all the time to you guys, yeah. I could have easily been aborted. Like,
Yeah.
let's just talk about, like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to be here.
yeah.
That was a very selfless act that someone else just decided to have me for God knows what reason. I had no say in that. I wasn't fighting for my life. I have so much respect for my biological mother, who, you know, and sometimes when I talk about her, people are uncomfortable because they think that I'm supposed to not like her or resent her. And I'm like, no, I'm here because of her. I don't care what mistakes she made in her life or what her struggles were. Doesn't matter to me. She gave me life. Like,
She gave me life.
she gave me life.
She gave me life. No, that's and again, we talk about that all the time, because it's just like, not that we were saying it was one small decision, but it's a huge decision. I wanted to jump in about the therapy part and like the self-diagnosing, because when I went to therapy too, because my parents were like, "You're sad," and I was like, "Yeah." I didn't want to go, because I went in and I was saying, like, I know everything you're about to say is because of my parents' divorce. Like, I know I'm like this because of this. And this was like in grade 11, so I was really feeling like angsty, but I was like, I know this because of this, and this because of this, and this because of this, and there's nothing you can do to change it. Like, and that's partially, you know, my fault, because I went in with a chip on my shoulder. But when in your therapy experience, did you find that was always like a last resort, that therapist said? It was like, well, you feel that way because you're adopted.
I think because I was so clear that wasn't the issue, and because I'm in such a loving home, and my parents really did raise me, like, so well with that. Like, I made it very clear that wasn't my damage. Like, I had other things to talk about that I felt needed to be addressed more. But no, sorry, I wanted to just finish my thought about what I was saying earlier about, no, don't worry, but about the including, like, feeling included. Yeah, like, I think I'll always feel sort of, you're a disaster today.
This is the second time I spilled water today.
Yeah, but I just feel like I feel like I have to chase down being included. Like, I have to chase the groups I want to be into. I have to really fight for the opportunities I want, because I don't feel like anything's going to be handed to me. Like, a loving home wasn't handed to me. Like, my parents I was in a foster home for a year, right? So, which is nothing. Like, I don't remember anything, but it's this initial trauma, which a friend of mine explained that way to me not too long ago, and I thought, that's a perfect way to articulate it. Like, it's not something you have a memory of, but you just feel like you didn't get off on the right foot in life, and so you always feel like you're a step behind.
Right.
And I come from a really big family, as you guys both know. I come from a huge family. And my mom's Irish, my dad's Ukrainian, so I'm with like all blue-eyed people. And I know that doesn't mean anything, but for me, I'm the brown-eyed girl in the family. You know what I mean? Or my family just like, they all have such distinct features, and I just know like, well, I don't have that nose. I don't have that. Like, and so, yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier. It's like, even though my family has never made me feel like I am not wanted at the table or that I'm not welcome, it's just inherent. Like, they didn't do anything wrong. They raised me perfect. It's just that sometimes that's just the feeling you're going to have. Yeah.
Was there ever a point when, because you were adopted ever since you were a bebe.
Yeah.
So
bebe.
it's not like you were 15 and adopted.
Exactly.
Was there ever a point where your parents were like, okay, let's have a chat, you're adopted? Like, what was like that like?
Well, so that's what I mean when I said my parents like did such a great job. So my parents were always very clear with me and my sister, because my sister was adopted from a different family as well, that we were adopted. And it was because they introduced that word at such a young age, it didn't feel weird to say it or think about it. It was just like, yeah, I'm adopted. Whatever. Like, I remember being in grade 3 and telling my teachers I was adopted. Like, I don't remember a time where I didn't know that. And my parents had a book that they used to read me when I was little called The Day We Met You. And it's about this couple that's like getting the house ready for the baby that they're adopting to like welcome into the home. And I think it was their way of communicating to me, like, we were so excited. We were so excited to have you come, you know, like the day we met you, like it was such a great day. Like it's so weird because it's sort of like a trauma that's fixed so quickly, where you're like, I went from being unwanted, like a burden, to being adored and chosen. And it all happens so fast, and I have to take both of those for what they are at the same time. So it's a lot to bounce back and forth. But my parents were, it wasn't a big deal in our family. So yeah, they did a really great job when it came to that stuff.
You ready for adoption?
Adoption?
So if you're comfortable talking about it,
Yeah.
what was it like not only being adopted, but then having a sibling that was also adopted? Was that awkward or like?
No, that was never awkward, because we love like sisters, we fight like sisters. So like that never got in the way. I don't know. It's a hard thing to explain, because I know from the outside it must seem like
that's
so
why it seems
strange.
Weird, yeah.
But it's not, because we were raised knowing and not thinking that we were like less of a pair of sisters than we were. But I think like, I don't know how to like, I feel like I'm getting like too personal. Oh, I was gonna say, but one of the things that I so admire, like about you both, but specifically with you, is like, you have so much pride in like, even though you come from a family of divorce, like both your parents are Italian, and there's like so much culture involved in your family about bonding over that and bonding over the food and the music and the language, and you know what I mean? And like, for me, I think that was one of the hard things growing up, is like having so many friends that came from Italian families, not that you have to be Italian, but like just like really cultured homes, and just feeling like I had to be a blank slate because I didn't know what kind of blood ran through my veins. Like, we didn't have any cultural traditions in the house, because I think my parents just kind of like didn't know what to do with that. They were just like, it's fine, like we have Christmas and Halloween and Easter, and that's great. But yeah, like I guess I never really understood people. I respect it so much when they have so much pride in their culture, but it's something that it's really hard for me to wrap my brain around it, because family to me isn't blood. It isn't about like being loyal because you're blood and because you have this, like, because family dinners are important and this and that, like that stuff is not important in my house. So right? And so that's the thing, is that I feel like there's a sense of family and a sense of home and belonging when you smell that food or you're at that table, because there's something there that kind of like bonds you, and that's something that I don't have. It's just kind of like, we're all just here and it's great. So yeah, I think like for my friends growing up, they would always ask me like, are you Italian? Like, what are you? And when you don't have an answer and you're just kind of like, well, I was adopted, so I don't really know like what I am. And it just goes back to that feeling again of like not being included in something. Like
Yeah.
you're not part of any group. You're just floating. And another thing I wanted to mention really quickly is that my mom works in social services, and she like specifically works with like foster homes and placing kids. And so when you're adopted, if you have enough perspective, for me, I don't take it for granted that I was a white baby that didn't come from such a really terrible background with my biological parents, that you know, people weren't turned off. Like I was really like, I was like, this is one of the golden ones, like take her, you know what I mean? Like, I was it sounds like they were shopping for me, but like when I used to go to work with my mom and I would see some of the foster kids in different foster homes, like I was just like, you have survivor's guilt almost, because you're just like, I'm so lucky that I got chosen. And yeah, I think there's a lot of guilt where you're just like, I still don't feel like I belong, but I was chosen, but I still don't feel like I should be here. Yeah.
It's an interesting, like, I hate to use the word dichotomy, but like, it is, because like you said, you get two of those things thrown in your face at once, and then you're left to digest it, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
You weren't wanted, but you were wanted, but you weren't wanted.
And you're chosen. Bye. Next. You know what I mean? It's
And you're our daughter, but you're not our daughter, but you're our daughter, but you're
Yeah.
her sister, but you're not her sister, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, it sucks because not sucks that you were adopted, but like,
Yeah.
you were put through the adoption process, but then you're like, oh, I'm privileged because I was adopted now, in
Yeah.
comparison to other people that have been in the foster care system for
Exactly.
how long?
But then you still feel fucked up, and you're like, imagine what they feel. Like,
Exactly.
So, in thinking about like your future, what are the ideas? Sorry, let's rewind. In thinking about your future and looking back at things that, you know, Sue and Stan, the best parents ever, have taught you, what do you want to bring to establish a home, or like what do you feel that your like home is?
I feel like I feel
Puberty is hard.
Well, home to me, you know what, I have to be really honest. Like, I know you guys had great answers, but I still don't feel like I have a home. Like, I don't think I'll ever really feel at home. Like, even with my friends, it's not about who I'm with, it's about me feeling at home within myself. And I think for a lot of kids that are adopted, it's just, you have a lot of identity issues. You really do. I just don't feel like I know myself, and you know, it's so stupid. Okay, do you guys remember the movie Stuart Little?
Yes.
Okay, that movie always got to me. And there's this one line, because they adopt the mouse, Stuart. And he's talking to them one night about, like, his parents. And he just says, I just feel like I have an empty space. And I want to know what was there before. And then fucking Gina Davis is like, you have an empty space? That's so sad. Shut up, Gina Davis.
Shut up, Gina Davis.
I love Gina Davis.
But Beetlejuice. Yeah. But that's kind of how it feels. Like, you just feel like you're always going to have this empty space that will never be filled because you don't have access to the answers that you want. You just don't.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that. So I think hopefully in the future I will come to a place in my life where I feel like I truly belong somewhere. I am truly welcome. I am truly wanted there. And get over this feeling that maybe I just wasn't supposed to ever be here. I hope I get over that feeling, because that's when I think I'll feel at home within myself.
Yeah.
Do we need to go to therapy?
Yes.
If
the
there are
answer
any
is
group
yes.
therapists out there, we
That want to take on this bunch.
Accident. Cat.
Will be-
Accident.
Yeah.
What? I'm having so many things today.
would be great candidates for you.
We would be excellent candidates, I think. What great PR. Guys,
God.
I love you. I think the most important thing, because I know we were talking about home and then we started talking about family, but I think for a lot of us, like, the idea is like family is home, and that's like not the case. It's I think
Home is a feeling.
home is a feeling. It's where you feel settled. It's where you feel safe. It's where you feel wanted, special, not
No, you're not
anxious. Yeah, we're not special, guys. I don't know. I said everyone last week was special, so
We're hypocrites.
we're
Shocking.
okay. But yeah, I think, like you said, it's a feeling more than anything. So, you know, I hate to sound like if there's anybody out there that's feeling like this, but truly, like, if there's anybody that's
I
having,
think everyone feels like this. I don't think
Exactly.
there's one person that's like, my home life is great and I love my home.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
even was I talking to you about this on the phone where you were like, were there any shows for you to watch or something? Like how does the
Yeah.
TV present certain things?
Yeah.
Whatever like you're seeing, even on like Instagram, and I sound so old, but like, you know, all the things that you're seeing that like what families do together when they're at home and what homes should look like. And like if you're rich, you can have a home like this. Like none of
And
that
how
matters.
your mom and dad like handle your teen issues. Like I remember thinking like, why aren't my parents there for me the way like these guys on TV are? It's not true. Like
Yeah.
parents aren't doing anyway. Yeah.
What we're trying to say is home is a feeling, not necessarily a place, and not to be completely like coerced by whatever's being thrown in your face and trying to be sold to you.
And it doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't need to be like the cards you were given are the cards that you need to be comfortable with. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? Like just because you were dealt a certain hand doesn't mean it's like, well, I better learn to accept that. You can create your own space for
Exactly.
yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Julian, thank you for coming on this
Thank
week.
you for having me.
We love you so much. We'll
love
probably
you so
have you on
much.
again. We need to
We
shit
will
talk.
have you on
We haven't
again.
shit talked with him in a while, so we're just gonna have a nice little session after this, and we'll do it on
Wouldn't you
camera.
guys pay to see one of our shit talking sessions?
I
Why
would.
don't you?
Okay,
All right.
well,
Cheers,
cheers.
friends.
Love you.
Love you.
And that's all.
Shana Tova.
We'll see you next week, guys.